Happy Halloween, everybody, and happy Thursday. Welcome to another Chamber check-in episode from Idaho's only five-star accredited chamber. I'm really looking forward to our conversation with Harmon Travel today. We have Vice President and Office Manager with us today, Sean Harmon. I'm going to bring him on stage. Hi, Sean.
Hey, Paul, happy Halloween, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. We met officially at an event recently, and I saw Bob and Barbara at the event, and your folks. I love them. I just love them. When I first started with the chamber, Sean, my first call that was kind of outgoing call was to Bob and Barbara. And I had an instant connection with those two. So I'm so glad that you and I get to connect now and do this little this chamber check-in.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic, and they've been, in the travel world for so long. They just have been influential in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to hear the story because these check-ins, Sean, are really great ways of sharing our members' stories, their products and services, but most importantly, the people. And I love the Our Story piece on your website. And so I want you to share that. But first, tell us a little bit about you, Sean. What's your background and history of work that led you into the travel industry?
Well, as we'll get into in the background, it's a third generation business. So really, I started working on stuff with Harmon Travel when I was, in my teenage years. Helping put things together for Boy Scout jamborees, where we were sending hundreds of Boy Scouts back to the East Coast, and then getting to work, some on the computer systems and helping around the office. So I started doing stuff with it way back then, but then I had a little bit of a wandering soul and decided to join the Army, and I kind of ran away for about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so did a full 22-year career with the Army. I was a helicopter mechanic, working on Apache helicopter. I mean, just an amazing machine. It was so much fun. They even actually let me fly one once. But no, I had a great time doing that. I worked with some of the most amazing people. I lived all over the world. The Army moved me all the time, and it was always over an ocean. So I got to live in places like Korea and Germany and Hawaii. It was a pretty fun trip around the world a few times. And then, so I retired from the Army in March of 23, and finally had the opportunity to come home. So, I went back and forth over the years on whether I was going to land here or not. And so when everything lined up with my leaving the service and coming back home, I told my dad, yes, I wanted to be a part of it. And it was, a lot of fun to get back in here and dive in. And so I've been here for almost a couple of years now and have jumped in with, full force. So
That's awesome. I had no idea. Thank you for your service to the country. And I bet you there's a lot more stories that you and I could talk about. That's awesome.
Definitely. We'll get into them at some point.
So, Sean, you've just tickled our fancy on the origin story. Let's dive in. Tell us how it all started. Help me share.
Absolutely. So the office is about, or the business is about 67 years old. So in 1956, if I've got the year correct, my grandparents, Earl and Eleanor Harmon, were operating a service station in Hammond, Idaho. And the buses would come through there, and they would, stop and chat with my grandfather, Earl. And one of the bus drivers said, you guys ought to think about, running bus tours out of here. And they, took the idea, chewed on it for a little bit. And my grandmother, Eleanor, decided that, yeah, she really wanted to pursue that. And so it was her that started the travel agency.
Oh.
And the and it was she was really kind of a pioneer in starting a and running a business as a woman back then, especially in this industry. So they built it on the kitchen table. Uh, they started putting together these tours, and if you see on our logo, it says established in 1957. The first bus trip was actually scheduled for 1956. And she was so excited about it, got everything put together, sold it to a bunch of people, forgot to collect any money, and nobody showed up.
Classic.
So the first actual bus trip that went was in 1957. Um, and so they went from there and just continued building on it. And kind of like I said, when I was a kid, I was, putting things together for the Boy Scout jamborees. Um, my dad and his 6 siblings, when they were growing up, they were putting together all the documents for these bus trips, and it was a very, very family run business. And then eventually grew and moved to Boise, where we spent the majority of our time down on 16th and State. A lot of people remember seeing the sign there, and it built into a full scale full service travel agency. And there was, a lot of things when you look at it and look back on the way that things have developed and changed and everything over the years. It's amazing to hear some of the stories, especially from my dad, because he officially this month has worked at Harmon Travel for 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So to hear how things have developed and some of the quirks that are out there, it's pretty incredible. So my grandmother started and was running the business, and my grandfather started to get involved in the tourism industry on a more political level, and so he was actually heavily involved with the NTA, the National Tourism Association, and used to spend a lot of time back in Washington, D.C., lobbying for the tourism industry. And I know he did a lot with the national parks as well. There are things that I've seen around that I've heard some of the stories about, and I don't know all of them, but there's a picture of him with the president receiving recognition for his work with the Tourism Association. He's got an award from Canadian tourism for a lot of the work that he did with them up there as well. Used to go up to Vancouver quite a bit to work on things. And so the family has been, very involved, very influential in tourism across the country. And it's fantastic to come back and be a part of that now.
Wow, what a great story. I love that in 1956 the bus went, but there was no money, and then worked it all out on the dining room table. I love that, and I'm wondering where those buses are going in Hammett, because there's that whole Thousand Springs there, and you're really close to Bliss, and that's a beautiful part of the country. So I get it.
And they used to send bus trips all over the country, even all the way out to DC.
Wow.
And we've got photo albums in the lobby here that just document it, through years and years and years of sending people all over the country.
Okay, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that with me, Sean. I love that stuff. Now, so back then, buses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, what is Harmon Travel? What are the services and products now? Tell me a little bit about that. Like cruise ships? Are you doing trips to luxury vacations? Tell us a little bit about that.
So we are full spectrum. We have a dozen agents in house that have all kinds of different specialties. So we're going to take care of any kind of transportation that you need: air, rail, bus, ship. Work on cruises, accommodations of everything from you're trying to take a quick trip around the states and you're looking for something simple and and we can help you book that to trying to find 5-star accommodations, in Bangkok, anywhere around the world. We've got partners all around the world that we work with to make sure that we are putting people in the best possible places that have been vetted, that are not an internet bait and switch that you run into sometimes.
Okay.
And so you said cruises. There is such a wide spectrum of cruises that you can get out there. You've got the big primary brands, you've got the really uber luxury smaller ship brands, you've got river cruising, you've got expedition cruising. And the adventure and expedition side of things is just blowing up nowadays, and the products that they have out there are incredible experiences. Some of the other things, we got a lot of work that we do on groups, whether it be a big destination wedding. Businesses like to do incentive trips for their employees. We've got a number of businesses that we work with that use it as a way to give their employees bonuses, is they give them travel money. And there's a lot of other little things that go into traveling that we can help with as well. If you're going somewhere exotic, you may need visas, you may need to re-up your passport or get your passport for the first time. You don't know what to do. We have experts that know how to do that, how to get you involved in programs like TSA PreCheck, Global Entry, things that are going to make your travel easier. And then we have some unique things that we try to offer to people for, like, positive impact travel. A lot of people want to not only visit a place, but get immersed in the culture and be able to give back to the people that they go see. And so there are ways that we can do that through a company that is called Travel Elevates, that we're associated with. And they own a program called Pack for a Purpose. And it's a really, really cool program where you bring a suitcase that is, or pack part of your suitcase with things that are going to help somebody in that local community. And there's a guide on what to bring based on which specific area you're in. And you make sure you give it to the person that is going to get it in the hands of the people that need it as quick as possible. So
that's awesome.
In a nutshell, that's what we do.
That's a lot. I don't do a lot of traveling, and if it wasn't for my wife booking everything and scheduling it a year in advance, I probably wouldn't go too far. And I just read an article that was shared through, it was shared through, there's a magazine called Travel. I forget the name of it. Anyway,
yeah.
They said something that that next generation, that the Gen Z generation has been using travel agents to book their holidays in an incredible rate, some like 47% increase or something. So what is Harmon Travel? Its perfect client? Is it the young traveler? Is it the family travel? Is it the seniors who are wanting to go to Europe? Tell me a little bit about that.
So, our most common client is probably, in or close to the retirement age and spending a lot of time out traveling. Now, our favorite client is anybody with an adventurous spirit. Anybody that wants to get out and experience and see the world, we want to bring it closer to you. There's a lot of stuff. I talk to people, on a fairly regular basis that ask me, why use a travel advisor? You can book it on the internet. True statement. There is a wide variety of stuff that you can see and find on the internet, and there's ways to go about it. But I have, like I said, a dozen people here that are experts in knowing the finest details that you got to look at and you got a plan, and you have to take into account, so it's going to be an enjoyable experience. They're going to spend hours researching the vetted possibilities, not the wide array of stuff that you can find, because there, unfortunately, is a lot of noise out there in the market. And we may not always be able to get you the cheapest option for traveling somewhere, but we will make sure that you get the most value for the money that you spend. That's the goal. We want the experience and the value, and not to come back from a trip stressed,
right?
And not to be stressed when planning the trip. I mean, that's our job, not yours.
Right. Well, and plus, if you're going somewhere you've never been, you don't know what's credible out there when you're online, and then being safe, right? There's probably copious amounts of things you have to read, and like reviews. I think that's important, but I wouldn't spend my time doing that. I'm glad you guys do that. Okay, hey, what's hot right now? What are the vacations that are hot? What are you seeing?
So we see a bunch of what we call fun and sun. No matter what, that will always be a hot ticket item, as people want to get down to a nice beach, go hang out next to that water that has that perfect blue turquoise color, and enjoy some time out there, some drinks on the beach, some sun, and get to relax. Europe has been crazy for the last couple of years. And ever since, the pandemic wall came down, everybody has been heading to Europe. And, that's a fantastic thing. They go out and experience and see the culture and everything. The thing that some of our advisors are finding now is that, we got to work a little harder to try to get you off the beaten path, so you're not stuck in the horde of people getting off 5 cruise ships in a port in the Mediterranean. And there's ways for us to do that, to be able to help you out, to make sure that you have a better experience than somebody that went out uninformed.
Yeah. I like what you're saying about that, because I always want to go to these places during the off season of travel, so that I can have an experience almost like an immersed into the culture. My wife and I went to Costa Rica a few years ago, and we went somewhere where there's no tourism, and we got the real experience, with the monkeys in the trees. And lost our way several times trying to get there. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the fun of it. It's an adventure.
Okay, Sean, continuing on here. I see you have a page of travel with the Broncos. Tell me a little bit about that. And can you guys put together a package for the Tour de France?
Yes, actually, we've got a great company that we work with that would love to do that. So we have had a close connection with Broncos, especially with the football team, for many, many years. The stories about us taking hundreds of people to the Fiesta Bowls back in the day were fantastic. I think for one of them, the big one, we chartered 5 airplanes and took people to the Fiesta Bowl, and it was just a fantastic time. So it's extremely exciting seeing, what Coach Danielson and, the Heisman competition with Ashton Genty and the rest of the team just doing so well this year. We are really, really excited to see who all and how many people we get to take with us to watch some of the postseason excitement. And we've already got Notre Dame on the list for next year. And so, we are extremely excited and have a lot of fun taking fans to these games. I took, I think it was 40 or 50 people to Mountain West Championship last year. And we all had a ball down in Vegas. And then we took, I think it was about 70 people to the LA Bowl.
Okay.
And I just saw Hans Anderson question about corporate travel. Yes, we absolutely do corporate travel as well, and really like being able to help the local businesses with that.
That's great. Great question as well from the listener. I think that's something that probably gets passed over when you're talking about travel. You're thinking vacation, but maybe it's a staff outing or a retreat or a strategic meeting. I think that's really cool. Um, hey, is there anything else you'd like to educate the public on while we have you today, Sean?
So I mentioned it briefly a little bit ago, a couple things. The positive impact travel, I think, uh, is a really, really cool part of the industry right now. So I was down in South Africa back in May, and they took us to the township in in Cape Town, and we got to meet a lot of the people that are still living pretty underprivileged lives. They're still coming back from apartheid and some political distress and everything else. And so to meet them, to hear their stories, to get to talk, and we danced with them in the place that they were putting on a show for us. We got to support them by buying a lot of the different souvenirs and things that they had made for us. I think we bought them out. Even if we didn't really need the souvenir, we were just trying to help them. And so companies like Travel Elevates and Pack for a Purpose are a great way for people in the Valley who I'm from here, and I know the generous heart and generous spirit that our community has. So it makes you not only get to enjoy the trip, but feel good about leaving a lasting impact where you go. On the second half of that trip, I actually went to Namibia, and really, really interesting country. It hadn't rained there in 6 years in the part of the country that I was in, and it's still just teeming with life. It's weird. I don't know how it works. But we got to meet people from a couple different villages. One of them was a Himba village, where you imagine straight out of a National Geographic episode, and they choose to continue to live in a very
Simple life.
simple life. Thank you.
Yeah.
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 And then right next to it is the more modern village where, they have the school and they have a fairly normal community. But I mean, I'm talking, it took hours of not seeing anything flying to this area, to get there. And so it was extremely remote. There wasn't, local utilities. There wasn't a power grid. There wasn't anything. It's very kind of a primitive style of life. And so myself and another agency that was there with it, the owner of another agency that was there with us, are working on getting them involved in Travel Elevates so that that arm is reaching out to those kids as well. And if we get it to work out right, we're going to basically be able to provide lunches for the kids at school for probably an entire year.
Wow.
And so we're really excited about being involved with that, and we're going to send them soccer balls because kids want to have fun. So, sorry. The other piece that, as far as my little PSA that I'd like to give is travel insurance. So, it's, in my eyes, it's something that you should always have and hope to never use. I have seen, being involved in so many different trips and experiences that people are going on, there are many that have no issues. And, we recommend that they have it, but they don't end up needing to use it on those trips. But because we're involved in so many, I get to see a number of the stories where they get to use it. And, sometimes it's protecting your investment as you get into these trips. There's something that happens beforehand and you're not able to go. And there's, lengthy, times where things become non-refundable. And so you do have that protection element there. there's an additional aspect of it of while you're out on the trip, if things don't work out right. On my trip down to South Africa, it took me 3.5 days to get there because every possible thing that could go wrong did go wrong on my way. And so any expenses that were incurred there, that's covered. That and it helps there. But the big one is the medical coverage and evacuation coverage that it gives you if you're on a trip and something serious happens. No names, of course, but we had a woman that was, or a couple that was on a trip to Europe, and she fell and she broke her femur, and it was in the last couple days of the trip. And so she ended up in the hospital needing surgery, and her husband were stuck there for an extra, I believe it was an extra 2 weeks, while they went through and took care of her. The insurance, one, talked to the medical staff over there and got everything taken care of so that she didn't have to worry about what's covered under the American policy, and just smoothed over everything. They talked to everybody that they needed to. They also took care of the accommodations for putting her husband in a hotel.
Oh, wow.
So that he could be there. When she ended up finally getting released from the hospital and able to come home, they sent a traveling nurse with her, so that she had care the entire way home. They put her in business class so that she had a full lay down seat so that her splinted leg was not going to be a problem. And it was all covered. They, depending on what kind of policy you get, you can be covered for, $500,000 or $1 million in those kind of expenses. And if you end up having to use it once, it's paid for itself every time that you've ever decided to put it on a trip.
That's a great PSA, Sean.
Yeah.
That's a great PSA. Okay. I want to thank you for your membership before we get off here. Let me put your website up and phone number, how to get a hold of your office. So it's harmontravel.com. And you see the phone number 388 or 3000, 388 3000. Sean, I bet you don't know this, but Harmon Travel has been a member of the chamber since 1968.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know the date.
Yeah. So that just shows you how much your family and 3 generations have made an impact here in this community. It's pretty cool.
That is.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I get to be a part of that again.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time to help share the Harmon Travel story, some of the products and services you offer. If people are interested in learning more, go to harmontravel.com, give Sean and his team a call. Sean, thanks so much for everything.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for everything you do for the chamber.
Tell Bob and Barbara hi from us. Have a great weekend.